we are going to get started. And as people join us, that's fine. Um, so my name is Christy Ingram, and I am with, Families Together, New York State, and I'm in the Family Workforce Development Coordinator, so in the department. And Ashley is the same role as me. She's also a Family Workforce Development Coordinator, and she will be guiding us through this webinar of Code of Ethics for Family Peer Advocates. Thank you.
Hey, hi everyone. I see we're introducing ourselves in the chat. I love that. Thank you for doing that. Welcome to the CTEC webinar on Code of Ethics for Family Peer Advocates. This is the second year we're doing this, so maybe you're brand new to this. Maybe this is a refresher for you. Very excited to have you here. This is very exciting. I went through going through the Code of Ethics. There's a lot of really great information in here, a lot of things we can use with our families. So I'm very excited to go over this with you today. A little bit about me. As Christy said, I'm the Family and Workforce Development Coordinator at Families Together. I have a background in women's services, the child welfare system, and experience with medically complex children. I live in upstate New York, and I have 4 children. So we got about, I feel like where you are in the state is like how much snow you got. So in case anyone's wondering, we got about a foot, but I hear some people got more than us. So stay warm and dry today. So we're going to start with an icebreaker. As I said, I see people introducing yourselves in the chat. I love that. You can, if you haven't yet, you can give your name, what county you work for, and maybe what agency you work for. And since we're diving into the Code of Ethics, we can also use the chat for this. I want you to think about a moment that you showed up for a family by staying true to your values. Please give one word that reminded you of that moment. So one word in the chat of a time you showed up for a family by staying true to your values. What word reminds you of that? I see empathetic, resilience, persistence, empowerment. Love that one. Support, honesty, reliability. These are really great. Compassion, loyal, trust, mindful, respect. Respect's a great one. Listening. Yes, it's so important to listen to what our families are saying and really hear. Open-mindedness. That's great too. We work with families from all different places, different cultures, backgrounds, want to be open-minded and listen. No judgment. Present, another really great one. These are really awesome. Active listening and empathy. These are great. Open heart. That's beautiful. I love that. A lot of I'm assuming most of these code of ethics we already use on a day-to-day basis, especially going with the words that I see coming on the screen. We stay true to our family, so this will be great for you all since you're already doing it. So the course objective, the purpose of this training is going to be to enhance our comprehension of the FPA Code of Ethics. This serves as a framework for the professional conduct of family peer advocates. We're going to examine policies and procedures involved in the violation and review process. Ethics in the FPA role. This section can be found in the FPA Code of Ethics preamble. At the end of this training, we will have links that you can click on to take you to Families Together New York. You'll have links to the Code of Ethics itself and the complaint form. So when you apply for your provisional or your professional application, you have to read and sign the Code of Ethics. If you ever looked at it, it can be daunting to go through it. it's important to understand each point as well as put it into practice. So we're going to go through each of the codes for clarification, for better understandings. If you think about it, the Code of Ethics is kind of like a roadmap. So it's going to guide us when working with families. It'll help us out if we're unsure of what direction to take. Section 1 is going to be key rules of an FPA. We're going to be talking about commitment to families, empowerment and self-determination, commitment to partnership, integrity, and responsibility when credentialed. I just want to note that we have grouped these together in ways that make most sense for the training. This is not the order that you will find them in the Code of Ethics. So we'll first begin talking about commitment to families. This is code A. So this is the first code in the FPA Code of Ethics. So what can we do to promote a family's well-being? That's the first one, promote family's well-being. I first kind of want to think about the word well-being. What does that mean? If you want to put in the chat what well-being means to you, you can do that. What is well-being? What is it that we're promoting or protecting? Merriam-Webster defines well-being as a state of being comfortable, healthy, and or happy. I think all of our families and ourselves deserve that, to be happy, healthy, comfortable. Working with families, we should strive to create a supportive environment where the family's needs are met. We can do this by asking them what it is they need and what they want to happen. The Code of Ethics states that the FPA does this while keeping all applicable laws. So promoting families' well-being. Something that's a little bit different in the FPA role is we're asking the family. They're in the driver's seat.
Some of the chat says individualized, private and honest communication, culture and lifestyle, mental health, giving the family a voice, overall health, a state of security and safety,
Yeah,
meeting them
safety.
where they
Good.
are, lack of judgment.
Yeah,
They're great.
yeah, good answers to what is well-being. So the next code is the next line in commitment to families is promoting family-driven care. So if you're an FPA, if you've been an FPA for a while, you're going to hear family-driven care. It's a huge, huge part of who we are and what we do as family peer advocates. So we can promote family-driven care by focusing on the family's strengths, centering the family voice, sharing the power. So not control, and build capacity, but not dependency. So we want to do for with the family. We want to make sure that they're there with us with everything we do. And building capacity is teaching them how to work through some of these systems, these child serving systems, not dependency. If we do everything for the family, they're not going to learn anything. They're not going to become independent or be able to advocate for themselves. So we want to promote that family-driven care while making sure that we're looking out for the well-being of the family and that they are going to be able to learn how to navigate some of these systems. Families aren't always aware of their strengths. So we want to allow the family to define their goals by asking questions. So what matters to you most right now? What would success look like to your family? We want to ask them questions, help them point out their strengths and see what they're great at, what they're doing right. We want to walk alongside the family. We should be building independence by helping the family understand how to navigate systems, ask questions, and assert their rights. And then there'll be times, no matter what you're doing, that you'll have to resolve a conflict. Conflicts do come up, whether it's with the families we're working with or our coworkers, and we will have to understand how to resolve those conflicts. And so what happens when our responsibility to the family comes into conflict with other requirements? An example of this may be you refer to a family, you meet them for the first time, and they have a great deal of mistrust for service providers in general. So, that's a conflict we would have to work through. If anyone has ever, worked with families, that's something that does come up, is that mistrust there, and how do we work through that conflict? It's important to remember that conflict isn't necessarily, it's not failure. Conflict is an opportunity to build deeper trust using empathy. So working through that conflict. And it's important for FPAs to be aware of any ethical concerns in the workplace. We need to understand how to resolve them. And if we cannot resolve them, you can go to routes such as supervisors, HR, or creating a code of ethics complaint, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. Okay, and last is we can reduce stigma by focusing on the family focusing on the family and the youth rather than just the diagnosis or where they came from. We can share our personal story. We want to speak up when you see discrimination. If you see something is not right, not the way it should be, it's important that we speak up. We should understand and acknowledge any biases that we may have. Everyone has biases. It's important to acknowledge those, address those. I am putting in the chat a test. It's for Harvard, and it's an unconscious bias test. It's really cool to check it out. We use this quite a bit. When you have spare time, you can take it and kind of go through and see if you have biases, how to address those. There's many different tests on there. Next, we're going to look at the Code of Empowerment and Self-Determination. So working with families, we need to promote hope and resilience. We need to promote family-driven practices, and we need to promote youth-guided practices. Then we need to provide accurate information, current information, and transparency. These two skills, promoting and providing, need to go hand in hand. So I want you to reflect for a moment and think about what would happen if we promoted hope and resilience without giving accurate information. What would that look like? What if we gave accurate information without providing or promoting some sort of hope and resilience? What if we promoted family-driven practices without giving accurate information or without giving current information? Or, give current information, but not promoting family-driven practices or hope and resilience. We need to do these two things together. We can help a family to have hope for their future by advocating for them and teaching them the skills they need to advocate for themselves and children. When we're family-driven, we put the family in the driver's seat. Remember, we might have to start by doing for the family, with the family, making sure we're there with them when we're doing for them, providing that example of how to do things or how to navigate those systems. Then we can do with the family, allowing them to take the lead and stepping in to help when needed. And then the final step would be cheering them on as they become more independent. We can promote the youth voice by allowing them to have a say in their goals and services. This can be done by inviting the youth into the conversation and asking them what they need and want. It's important to share current and accurate information with the families. Make sure you're knowledgeable on services available to you. So there may be times when a family might not qualify for services, they might not get what they're needed. We need to make sure we're not providing a false sense of hope. So instead, we can walk alongside the family. We can support them to the best of our ability. So that's, providing that accurate information, but also offering that hope and resilience. Okay. Commitment to partnerships. So I really want you to focus on the word commitment here. So commitment to partnership means we don't work on families, we work with them. Real change can happen when everyone can bring their expertise to the table. As family peer advocates, we all have expertise in different areas. The family has expertise in different areas. So as FPAs, we can build a bridge between the family and some of these other service providers. Collaboration reduces duplication, confusion, and burnout. When families know what expert to turn to, they won't rely heavily on the FPA. Christy and I do the 4-day training. We do coaching calls with, current FPAs. And a lot of times we hear of FPAs taking on a lot with the families, which is, we want to support the families. We want to be there for the families. But it's important to avoid burnout. The FPA, we're not supposed to be the do-all. There's at times when we can refer them to other service providers. That's the part of the importance of practicing that family-driven care is teaching the family advocacy skills, independent skills, so we're not taking all that on ourselves. It's important to be able to practice that, to be able to set those boundaries and understand when items can be delegated to other service providers to avoid that burnout. A lot of family peer advocates, we care, right? We're doers. We want to see the family strive. We want to be there. We want to support the family. And sometimes it's easy to cross those boundaries and just do everything for that family. It's important to know when and where to set that boundary so we don't become burned out. It's important to always include family and youth voice in whatever we're doing. So part of that is, if a family's asking you, saying, I don't know what to do, can you just do this for me? We want to go back and ask some of those questions that we talked about a few minutes ago. What does success look like to you? What do you want the outcome to be? So when families turn to you, yes, we can use our lived experience, we can use our expertise, but we also want to take it back to the family and put them in the driver's seat. Families are overwhelmed. They're stepping into a world that they might not have been in before. They might not know where to turn. And that can be overwhelming. We want to make sure we're pointing it back to them and helping them to navigate through those complex feelings, those systems, and asking them what they want and what they want to see. So like I said, we work with families because of our unique lived experience. So we can consult, refer, and collaborate with our colleagues on their areas of expertise. So, I had mentioned I work with medically fragile. I have that expertise, but Christy, my coworker, she has a different set of expertise. So when the time comes, I can rely on her. Our supervisors that we work with, we all have different lived experience. We all have areas of strength that we can turn to and make sure that family is getting everything available to them, if that makes sense. If we have any challenges, we can utilize our supervisor for those. We are going to now talk about integrity. So integrity is defined as being honest and having strong moral principles. Being familiar with the Code of Ethics is going to help us meet families where they are at and treat them with respect and dignity. So I want to ask a question. If you'd like to answer this reflection in the chat, you're more than welcome to do that. Or you can just reflect to yourself. As an advocate, how does our integrity impact the trust others place in us? Christy, would you want to read some of those responses as they come in?
I sure will.
So as an advocate, how does our integrity impact the trust others place in us?
By being honest to our words, leading by example, others need to see us follow through and be consistent, following through.
Yeah.
I think one for me is that sometimes I think that we can help heal some of the negative experiences they've had with
Mhm.
other providers to help them have more success in the future.
Mhm.
Being consistent and trustworthy, being confident and having confidence in others, admitting when we don't know something. I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
You guys are hitting on all these points that we haven't even gone over yet. That's so great.
Yeah, somebody said by sharing but not oversharing our lived
Mhm.
experience,
Beautiful.
consistent, awesome. Yeah, these are
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah. So, it's important to remember when we're working with others in the community, especially service providers, families, wherever we go, we are representing the FPA work. Um, and we should hold ourselves to an acceptable standard. Somebody in the comments mentioned it's okay to say when you don't know something, right? And that's right. So we want policies, procedures, everything, they're constantly changing. So we want to develop our knowledge by doing research, continuing to learn, improve our practicing by, coming to things like this, right? Um, so improving our practice of family peer support and advocacy. So yeah, when you don't know something, say, hey, I don't know right now. Let me, do some research and get back to you. That's okay. And then, when I first read the word lead, I was thinking, becoming a supervisor, kind of the next step. But also we want to think about that, assume leadership roles whenever possible, right? So this might not just be in the office, but leading in the community as well and being an example to our families. I heard that in the chat, being an example. Our youth are, those are the up and coming leaders. Those are the next generation. So we're setting that example for our youth. And the families we're working with, we want to again lead by example, showing them that it's okay to use your voice, how to use your voice in the right way. Somebody said sharing lived experience without sharing too much. We want to teach those families how to go out in the community, how to advocate for their children, but also how to lead. I think about Families Together has a family empowerment day coming up where we go to Albany. It's a great place to lead and bring families to and show them, how to use your voice and speak up and be the leader in your community. Let's see. So, and then upholding advanced values of ethics, knowledge, and the mission of the FPA program. And we want to work to the highest level of FPA practice. We want to set those standards. So, what is our responsibility once we're credentialed? We only use the role or the title of the FPA, Family Peer Advocate, when you received your provisional or professional credential. Be aware of what the Code of Ethics says. If you see something that doesn't feel right, that doesn't look right, that you know is wrong, speak up. Utilize your community resources, utilize your supervisor. Um, there's a Code of Ethics complaint form if you need to use that. Somebody had recently said this, you don't have to have all the answers or right away. It's okay to say you don't know and come back to it. Again, policies are always changing, so we want to make sure that we are stay up to date, stay informed on the most up to date policies in our office, in our workplace, in our communities, in our schools. We want to stay informed as possible. We're going to take a moment and do this group activity. I will read this to you and ask a question. Feel free to answer this in the chat, and then we will go over it on the next slide. So Belle is an FPA. She's been working with the grantee family for a year now. They have struggled with their son Joe's behavior for the entirety of the relationship. He has been suspended from school for fighting, broken windows. He hurt his parents and his siblings. It's been suggested that Joe go to a residential treatment facility or RFT. Val has the paperwork, or Miss Grantee is hesitant to sign. On Wednesday, Val went to Miss Grantee's home and told her that she must sign the paperwork today. Val stated that she cannot leave until Miss Grantee signs the papers. Val informed her that it is the best decision for Joe, and by not signing them, Miss Grantee is harming her son. With tears in her eyes, Miss Grantee signs the paperwork for Joe to go to an RFT. So we just talked about a couple of a couple of codes. Can anyone tell me in the chat what code, this clearly violates some code, right? So what codes do you feel like this violates? Just a reminder, some of the codes is commitment to families, empowerment, self-determination, commitment to partnership, and responsibility when credentialed. So what codes do you think of those four does this violate?
So somebody said it's not family first.
Yeah.
It's not supporting freedom of choice.
Mm-hmm.
They overstepped.
Mm-hmm.
Parental rights and opinions are being violated. Youth is not being asked.
Mm-hmm.
Deciding for the family, not empowering the family. Losing trust.
Yeah.
Empowerment, self-determination,
Mm-hmm.
commitment to families.
Yeah.
Mary says it violates all the codes.
Yeah.
Commitment to partnership and families,
Mhm.
it's making
Yes.
the decision for them.
Yes. So I'm going to hop to the next slide and we'll talk about this a little bit more. So when we're looking at this, this is kind of an extreme example, right? Hopefully nobody actually does that. That's an example we also use similar in our 4-day training. So the violations are clear in that example. When we first read it, it may seem, you may have gotten the sense that maybe Bella is just trying to get the paperwork signed to get, to get it done with. However, we don't know the relationship between Belle and the family, right? So it says that Belle worked with the family for a year, and maybe Belle had a close relationship with the family. Maybe she's worked with them for so long, and she might be acting um, in her mind trying to help the family. Maybe she thinks she knows what the family needs. And that's an extreme example, but we need to be careful not to overstep boundaries. It's easy to make suggestions. It's easy to make strong suggestions to the family, especially when we worked with the family for so long and we think we know what they need. If we have shared lived experience, we might share with them, oh, well, this worked for us. You should definitely, try to do this. It's easily done, especially when you have a good relationship with the family. Maybe not to that extreme, but, we don't know what Belle's reasoning behind getting the paperwork signed. It might be, that her supervisor's telling her, you need to get this done. It might be that she thought she knew what was best for the family. But it's very, very important to make sure that we don't overstep that boundary. As long as we work with families, even if we have that shared lived experience, maybe we've been through something similar, we need to remember that the family knows what's best for themselves. So I saw I heard these answers in the chat. Commitment to family. The FPA did not promote the well-being of the family or family-driven care, right? The youth voice, it didn't even mention that in there. So we don't know if the youth was brought into the conversation. We didn't put Miss Grantee first. We, made a decision for her and kind of forced her hand there. So definitely commitment to families. I also heard empowerment and self-determination. So the FPA is supposed to support approaches that foster hope. The FPA should meet the family in the least restrictive environment, right? So if the FPA came to the home, said, I can't leave until this is signed. That is not the least restrictive environment. She forced the hand. And, somebody mentioned that it might have broke the trust. Maybe she worked for a year and has Miss Grantee's trust. We don't know. And something like that could definitely break that trust pretty quickly. And integrity. So the FPA should act with integrity in a way that promotes respect for the FPA program and improve outcomes for the family and youth. So good answers there. Thank you for doing that activity with me. Okay, we're going to be moving to section 2 of the Code of Ethics. we will be talking about propriety, conflict of interest, personal relationships, and respect for diversity. Okay. So when we look at proprietary, these are the things that we do want to do. When we're working with families, we want to make sure that we are following all laws and regulations. We want to uphold your responsibilities in FPA. It's important to be aware when there are ethical dilemmas, and be sure to utilize your supervisor or HR in these circumstances. So making sure, again, laws, statutes, any policies that might be changing, keeping up to date on those. Private conduct does not get in the way of your FPA responsibilities. Being aware. Be aware of private statements and actions and their relations to you as an FPA present in your organization. And when there's ethical dilemmas, making sure we address those. So proprietary, these are things we do not want to do. We want to make sure we're not using our position as an FPA to exploit personal gain. So what that might look like, maybe this could be something big. This could be something small. Maybe, the family you're working with works at like this fancy new restaurant in town. Or maybe you go like, hey, can you get me in a reservation at this restaurant next week? Something like that. It could be something that small. So maybe, it might be something like a circumstance where the family doesn't have clothing that doesn't fit the child anymore and they want to give you it. If you're working with a family and they're like, hey, I have these clothes, can you take those? We want to make sure we avoid situations like that. Accepting gifts more than a minimum value from the families you work with. That might be, gifts. It might be something like a coffee. For this, we want to go back to the agencies we work with and see what their policies are. This is, this code is on our code of ethics, but your agency, this is a minimum right here. It's not accepting gifts of a minimum, but, your agency might say no gifts. Your agency might say something a little bit different. So I always suggest going back to your agency. So, maybe the family you're working with, they want to meet at a coffee shop near their house and they offer to buy you a coffee, something like that. A good example of something you could take is if, maybe the child made you a card at school. Something like that would be appropriate to take. Always check with your supervisor if you do have questions. I will share a personal example for myself. It wasn't in the FPA role, but a long time ago, I worked with a family and they knew I was having a baby. So they took their time and knitted a baby blanket. And, something like that. I wasn't sure what to do. I did ask my supervisor and they did say it was okay. But, there's things, especially with different cultures, that might be offensive not to take it. This is a whole thing that we can get into. So just making sure that you check with your supervisor and yeah. Do not participate in, condone, or be associated with dishonesty, fraud, or deception. If you see something that doesn't look right, making sure we're addressing it. Do not exploit the FPA relationships for personal gain. They're pretty self-explanatory, making sure that, family comes first and we are doing everything we can to keep that family's well-being. Next, we're going to look at conflict of interest. So we want to avoid conflicts and inform the family if there is a potential conflict. what that might look like. Maybe the family goes to the same church as you. Maybe the family, maybe their child plays on the same soccer team as your child. We are all across New York State. I'm from a more rural area where everybody kind of knows everybody, right? Um, so we want to, when we can, we want to avoid those conflicts. If you are starting to work with a family and you know them, you know their uncle, there might be a potential conflict there. We want to make sure we bring it up to our supervisor. Um, Ask the family, are you comfortable? Maybe you went to high school with them. Are you comfortable working with me? There's ways around it, and just making sure the family is comfortable and aware. So that brings us to the next point, resolving conflicts while avoiding harm to the family. If they're not comfortable working with us for whatever reason, whether it's some of those examples, we want to try to refer them to one of our colleagues or, a different agency. We want to make sure that we are avoiding harm to the family. And again, make arrangements with your supervisor if a conflict of interest cannot be avoided. So dual relationships are when the FPA has more than one relationship with the family. I had given some examples. Children attend the same school, family attends the same church. Avoid dual relationships when possible, and take steps to avoid harm to the family and set boundaries. Setting boundaries might be, if you live in a small town, or even, if you live in a big city, you might see the family at the grocery store. Something I used to tell my families is I will say hi to you, but we won't talk about, talk about what's going on in a public place. It kind of protects that family. Another good habit to get into is just if you do see the family, you can wave to them, but not going up to them and start talking to them first. Maybe they're with somebody who might say, "Well, hey, who was that?" And they were kind of forced to tell who you are. So just kind of taking steps to avoid his family keeping their information private. And then personal relationships. This is we cannot work, FPAs cannot work with families or individuals where they've had a personal relationship. That's, current sexual relationship, a past sexual relationship, or a relationship with a family member. So a lot of time, I mean, you could this could be a brother, uncle, aunt, grandma, distant family member. If there's a relationship there that would cause harm, or cause the family to know, the other family members to know the family you're working with information, we want to avoid that at all costs. We want to keep their information private and just kind of set those boundaries, so it doesn't get blurry. We don't want to blur that. Okay. And then respect for diversity. We want to promote cultural competence and respect at all times. Respect the rights and dignity of those we work with. Acknowledge unique differences and backgrounds and demonstrate the ability to embrace families' different cultures. Demonstrate respect for cultural diversities and preferences. Seek to understand your own culture as it relates to others. In that instance, is there, something that that doesn't that in your culture that the family you're working with is doing that doesn't make you comfortable? Are there biases that you're aware of? So just kind of understanding those things. Utilizing trainings to better understand diverse groups. Identify a situation where biases are interfering with your ability to work and seek guidance from a supervisor. I just want to pop a question in the chat. What are some ways that you have respected diversity of the families you're working with? When you start working with a family, what are some questions we can ask to really get to know them and what they're comfortable with? I just want to hear what are some things that have worked for people in the past. Christy, the first thing I saw was they can always tell you, they can always tell you're hungry. Jennifer says, does it bother you that I'm white? Does your culture allow eye contact? Good. I explained that I'm entering their home and want to be respectful of their culture and beliefs. I love that. We had talked about making a least restrictive environment, but we are going into somebody else's homes. And we can't, if we're not careful to that family, it could be seen as a service provider, and there's that power dynamic there. So we want to make sure that when we're going in their homes, they are comfortable with us and that we're providing that least restrictive environment. What would you what would you prefer to be called by? I like that. Ask them about their customs that are important to them and how I can comply. What pronouns would you like me to use? Ask, ask, ask. Yeah, I think just ask questions, right? I think it's, yeah, more important to ask questions than assume, right? Is there anything you would like me to know about your culture or your family? Great. Keeping certain customs in the foreground, working with Jewish Americans and keeping the Sabbath or other holidays. Yeah, that's great. Making sure we're acknowledging the other holidays, right? I told the trans caregiver that I never worked with anyone that was trans, but I would be willing to work with them and respect their identity. They agreed to work with me. Yeah, that clarity and just being honest, I think that gains us a lot of trust. And coming in like that, that's great. Do you need further clarification on our FPA role? Yeah, I think that's a great one. I just think our position is so unique that, like I said, we're putting the family first, we're putting them in the driver's seat. That can be confusing. A lot of times, families are used to service providers or who are coming in and saying, okay, this is what we need to do. But in our instance, we're turning it back on the family and that could be overwhelming. And that's great. These are really great answers. Thank you so much. Always ask and be honest about your own needs as well. Allergic to cats, yeah. Fearful of dogs, that's a good example. My goal is to focus on your strengths and support your needs. Absolutely. Yeah, I like that you brought up like the cats and the dog situation. If you're allergic to cats, um, we want to make sure we're comfortable as well, right? And if there is that situation there, it's okay to acknowledge it and say, like, I can't go in this house, I'm allergic to cats. Maybe you refer to a colleague. It's okay to bring up those situations when they come up. I'm going to stop there. If you can continue to share in the chat with each other, that's so great. Thank you so much for sharing those. Those are really awesome. Okay, so respect for the diversity of some things we do not want to do. So practice, condone, facilitate, or collaborate in any form of discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, race, sex, sexual orientation, age, religion, national origin, marital status, political belief, mental or physical disability, military and or veteran status, socioeconomic status, immigration status, or any other preference or personal characteristic, condition, or state. So I just asked that question. We had some really great answers. I don't believe that anybody would purposely do this, but sometimes this can happen by accident, if we don't know the family's culture, if we don't know their preferences, right? So I saw ask, ask, ask. And a lot of people, mentioned asking questions, asking what the family is comfortable with. I think that is the best way to respect someone's diversity is just asking, finding out what they're comfortable with, what they want. And that's another way to promote family-driven care, right? We talk about family-driven care. It is especially important for diversity and comfortability in that family's home. What can we do to make them comfortable, to make them feel safe, and make sure we're not, discriminating in any way. Okay, so we're going to do another group discussion. So Barbie is a new credentialed family peer advocate. Today, she received a referral for the Martin family. However, their son Bruce is on the same soccer team as her own son. Sunday, she saw Miss Martin at the game and she excitedly shared that she'll be working with the family. Miss Martin was happy to hear they'll be getting help. She invited Barbie out for ice cream after the game. So, do you feel this violated the Code of Ethics? And how can we address the situation? So, essentially, Barbie came up to Miss Martin and kind of gave her whole information out there in front of everybody. What are our thoughts on that? Yeah, so shouldn't bring up the relationship in front of others. They might have been friends, seeing someone else, another mom on the soccer team saying, "Hey, we're gonna be working together soon." We don't know how she feels about that. Confidentiality, proprietary, dual relationship, yes. Wrong environment and discuss, yes. And then, so Miss Martin did invite Barbie out for ice cream after the game. We don't know if Miss Martin is paying for it. That's another thing we want to kind of think about too. It's kind of really blurring those lines. Boundaries. Should have discussed relationship with a supervisor upon seeing the referral. Yes, violation. And so, what are we thinking? Why can it get messy? So these two people, they're working together. Their sons are on the soccer team together. So their sons could be friends, or I don't know if you. I have a teen son, a teen boy, and I've seen him in sports sometimes. What happens if there's a conflict between the sons, and now Miss Martin is working with Barbie, and yeah, what if the kids have conflict? Right. It just can get really messy very quick. Confidentiality, boundary, yes, definitely should be brought during supervision. Yeah. Yeah. They might be friends, they might be friendly with each other, their sons might be friends, and it doesn't seem, might not seem like she might not think, Barbie might not think it's anything wrong, but as people said, it can get really yucky really quick, especially if the kids have conflicts. Unfortunately, a lot of us, well, not unfortunately, but a lot of us are mandated reporters. What if something happens and, as much as we don't want to, what if she had to make a report, or, even if she didn't make a report, bring up something. What if Barbie had to bring up something to Miss Martin, a safety concern, or have that conversation? It can just get really sorry, really difficult. Yeah, so that's super difficult. I've been in this situation. It's very hard to look past some of the comments and look at the person as a whole to support. Thank you for sharing. Talk to a supervisor, ask another FPA to assist the family. Yeah, and I've talked to FPAs who are at an agency where they might be the only FPA there. So, talking to see if a supervisor can take the family on, or referring to another agency might even be necessary. Yeah, there's a lot of concerns there. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, this can get really messy, so we want to avoid things like this. Thanks for all your comments. So now we're going to get into section 3, which is documentation. We're going to be going over informed consent, access to records, confidentiality and privacy, and responsibility when credentialed. So informed consent, it's important to gain knowledge on the family before working with them. The last slide, somebody said that Barbie should have talked to her supervisor as soon as a referral came in, right? So we get a referral from the family. It should have some basic information on there. We want to look at that, get as much information as as we can before working with the family. Maybe we find out what struggles the family may have. It might be a language barrier if that's there. If there's a learning disability from the parents, maybe the parent has a diagnosis of their own. We can either, get that when we get the referral or by having conversations with the family, but we want to, make sure we talk to the family and see what they need from us as far as that goes, is how we provide the service. So it's our responsibility to provide the service in the least restrictive way. So, um, we want to make sure the family gains the benefit and understands. If you're working with a parent who has a learning disability, they might be embarrassed to share that, but you're, providing them with items to read, and maybe that's not their strongest point is reading. We want to make sure we understand that as much as possible, so we can provide the family with the information in the way that's best suited for them. The family will not learn or grow if they do not understand the information given to them. We want to encourage the family to advocate for themselves and be involved in services. So we want, earlier somebody had mentioned explaining the role of the FPA. That's great. We want to make sure the family understands what our role is, what we can do for them, what we can't do for them. If there's something we can't do and they need to be referred to somebody else, making sure we're aware and clear of that. And just making sure, like I said, we provide it in a way that they can understand it. And also, we want to make sure that we advocate for the family to receive acceptable information from other service providers. Maybe the school is sending home paperwork from the family, and the family just doesn't understand what they're reading. And the school will say, well, they're not complying, or they're not communicating with us. It might just be that there's, a barrier there that the family just doesn't understand what the school is asking of them. So we want to advocate, to help the family to advocate for themselves. To say, tell other service providers what they need and facilitate opportunities for the family to be involved in planning and service delivery. So always having the family there when we go over their treatment plan with them, help them create the goals for their treatment plan, make sure they're involved every step of the way. If the youth is, if the youth is of age and able to help um, with their treatment plan, bring the youth in when available. Ask them what they want. Ask them what they want to work on. We want to make sure that we give them the opportunity. So our goal is to partner with the family. So if you can sit with the family and write your note together, that's great. We highly suggest that. At the end of the visit, you don't have to write an entire note. You can keep bullet points, but ask the family, what do you want me to put in the note? What is something you want to work on next time? Did you have any questions for today? Collaboration when note writing as well as the treatment plan is huge. I'm just curious if you want to put in the chat if anyone does collaborate with the family right now when they are writing notes, if you do that. So it's important to communicate with the family, let them know when you have to share their information. So, we often work with our supervisors with the family. So just letting the family know, hey, I do talk to my supervisor. They help me with any resources, anytime if we have something come up, my supervisor might know your information as well. Just being clear with that and letting them know. Making sure that the family signs releases before we talk to anybody. We want to protect the family's information and only share when that release is on file. And partner with the family when we share that information. So maybe calling the school together, helping them call other service providers, calling with them, whether you're leading or they're leading. And we can assist the families, whether that's teaching them or doing it with them to obtain records regarding their care and keeping up with any applicable laws. Okay, I was just kind of looking if there was any collaboration. Christy, did you see that in the chat? if
Yeah,
there's
there
collaboration.
are a few people who do collaborate with their
Mhm.
documentation, which is awesome. And then some people mention like the treatment plans and things
Mhm.
that they do it
Yeah,
with that, but not the notes. And somebody said that that was a good idea. And so
yeah.
I just put in that we would have a
Mhm.
collaborative documentation training coming up.
Yeah, and I see Albert, he said that he takes out his phone and types out reminders to show his clients and families. So that's, when we say collaboration on notes, you could do it on a notepad, you could do it on your phone, just kind of asking the family, like, what do you want in this note? I don't know if you've ever had a service provider in your home, but seeing somebody standing there with a notepad and just kind of, it puts that power dynamic off. So just inviting that family in to do that with you, it really kind of shifts that power dynamic, puts the family in the driver's seat again. Um, so yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing, guys. Okay, so confidentiality and privacy. Um, we want to respect the family's right for privacy. We don't want to run up to them during soccer games or at church or a restaurant or the grocery store. Um, They do not need to disclose that they have FPA services if they do not wish to. So maybe you're working with them and you offer to go to a school meeting with them and they say, nope, I don't want the school to know that I have a family peer advocate, or they don't want your help with that. We have to respect it. We have to respect their right for privacy. We want to put them in the driver's seat. We want them to tell us what they need from us, but that also includes their privacy. It's important to communicate with the family, let them know when you have to share their information. That's, if you feel somebody in the home is not safe, if you had conversations about that and you have to share their information, we want to be clear with them and protecting the family's information.
One thing that I always, if you're working in an agency where you have more than one provider that they're working with,
Yeah.
it's always important to like share that, you might have conversations within your agency and that those conversations would only be about like the service you're providing, not about like personal things or whatnot. It's important to make sure that you're disclosing that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Christy. If you have, maybe you might have, if they have, like Christy said, more than one provider in your agency, maybe you have a team meeting with all their service providers and them. I think it's important to ask them, what information do you want to discuss at this meeting? What information do we want to leave out? It could be service providers in your agency. It could be if you do go to a school meeting with them. What information do you want us to talk about today? What information do you want us to leave out? All too often, I think we just uh, kind of give the information, this is what's going on, but we want to make sure the family is okay with that. Maybe there's information they don't want to share, and we need to make sure we're up to date on that, and the family's in control of what information others know. Thanks for that, Christy. And then responsibility when credentialed. So once we're credentialed, whether it's a provisional or professional, we want to remain current on any fees, which there are none at this point. Comply with the Code of Ethics, using the title of FPA when applicable, provisionally credentialed or professionally credentialed. Work in the role of the FPA appropriately. So if you're not credentialed, um, your agency will know more about this. When to bill, when not to bill, not billing if you're not credentialed. That's something your supervisor may know, or if you are a supervisor, you would understand that. Cooperate with investigations. If there is any code of ethics investigation, just complying with that. If you do see violations of the code of ethics, going the appropriate route with those. And so we'll just kind of go over this, and this is kind of a little activity on the last codes we did. And you can pipe in the chat if the FPA acted ethically or not. The Martinez family speaks English outside of the home. but Spanish inside their home. James is an FPA, as an FPA, provided the Martinez family with their documentations and their preferred language. Do we think that's ethical?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, so um what if James just brought information in either English or Spanish and gave it to them without asking them? We want to make sure we want to make sure he's asking them what language they prefer it in, right? Instead of assuming. So yes, he did act ethically here, but we want to make sure we're always asking them which they prefer. If you are dual language speaking, asking the family which they prefer. Maybe, they do speak another language, but prefer something different. Making sure we're always asking the family. Like that comment said, ask, ask, ask. That's beautiful. So the next one, when Miss Jones asked Sarah for a copy of their treatment plan, Sarah told her she had already provided multiple copies and Mrs. Jones needed to stop losing them. Miss Jones will get a new copy at their next review. Did she act ethically?
Nope, 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 no,
Does
not at all.
anybody, yeah, not at all. Does anybody know what code of ethics, which one of the codes this violates? Does anyone remember? Or which one you might think?
Albert says family first.
Yeah, family
HIPAA
first
was
could be
mentioned.
HIPAA.
Family commitment,
I'm
access
specifically
to records.
Yeah, that's the one. Access, those are all right. I'm thinking specifically in this situation, access to records. The family should always have access to the records. You can give her a copy of her treatment plan 10 times, but she should always have it. Do we need to print it out? We don't have to do that. We could email it to her if that would be better for her. We could send a picture to her via text if that's what Miss Jones wants, but they should always have access to the records. Phoebe and Renee are two FPAs. They are both going through similar struggles with the families they're working with. On their lunch break, they sit in the break room, full of people, we'll say, and discuss what's been going on. Did they act ethically? And if and sorry,
Oh, no, unethical, confidentiality and privacy,
that's what I was looking for. I was going to ask that question
and
next, but
HIPAA
it doesn't.
violation, somebody
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah. So let's say the break room was empty. Do you guys think it's still a violation?
Still not ethical.
Yeah, still not ethical. What if somebody's outside? What if somebody walks
Somebody said
in?
anybody could walk in,
Hmm? Well,
and it's a
the other,
public space.
yeah, and the other thing is they're sharing with each other. So unless they have a release for the other person's family, it doesn't matter, right? And yes, confidentiality and privacy. And I think honestly, that's one that we could easily, I don't want to say easily, but it could be one that slips up. If you had like a family that you had a hard day with, or maybe they went through something really sad and you're like, oh my gosh, this poor family, and just kind of spilled their beans, it's something we could slip into. So we just want to really be careful with that and just really utilizing supervision for that. And then, so Joseph just turned in his provisional application, but it's not been approved. So he turned in his application, but he's not credentialed yet. He has begun signing his name FPAC, which is the provisional uh, letters. Is that ethical?
People are saying no,
Mhm.
because somebody said, no, you have to earn that. Amen. No. Integrity of the profession.
Yeah, so responsibility when credentialed, we want to make sure that until it's approved, you don't use that title and that we're not billing. You have to earn that. That's cute. Thank you. Okay, so we will take a few minutes. We're going to go over the complaint review process. So I gotta go back. How to file a complaint. You can file a complaint by completing the Code of Ethics complaint form and providing supporting documentation. Complaints can be found on the Families Together website. There's a link to that once you get the slides. And then you would email the completed form to Families Together New York, attention FPA credential at familiestogether.newyorkstate.org, Department of Workforce Development. So this email here goes to all of the Department of Workforce Development. That's Christy, myself, and some other of my colleagues. And then the investigation and review process. The Director of Workforce Development or designee reviews the complaint and contacts the proper authority if necessary. The individual of the complaint that the complaint is about will be contacted. They may submit a response in a reasonable amount of time. Failure to provide accurate information or cooperate with the investigation shall be grounds for an independent sanction. There will be a determination on whether the Code of Ethics has been violated in a reasonable amount of time, depending on the situation. Each investigation will be conducted thoroughly. Depending on the results, a sanction may or may not be imposed. We have a credentialing advisory committee. Whenever Code of Ethics violations come in, it does go through our CAC. So it's not just us who looks at it. We have a team. Possible sanctions may be a denial of a pending provisional application, a written caution, suspension of a credential, or revocation of a credential. So I want to say these all seem very, very serious and kind of scary. But as long as I've been here, I haven't seen one. I'm wondering if anyone has ever had to do a Code of Ethics complaint. Put it in the chat. The individual has 30 days. This is the appeal process. The individual has 30 days from the date of the decision to file an appeal. Appeals should be sent to Families Together in New York State and addressed to Department of Workforce Development Appeals. And you would use that same email that we just went over. And this is where the Credentialing Advisory Committee comes in. A 3-person committee will be formed, all of whom are independent of anyone who was involved in the initial decision and all without conflict of interest.
We do have one person who said yes, they have.
Okay. I think it's definitely important when you see something to take those routes. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We want to make sure we uphold the family peer advocate credential for our families. Here's some resources. All our information is on the Families Together website. This is our email, again, that goes to the workforce development team. Christy, myself, Tyrus or TJ Curtis. This is to review the Code of Ethics. It'd be, it's good to print it. If you have it, keep a copy somewhere with you. It's really an interesting read. There's a lot of really good information on there, information that we can use with our families. And then this is the Code of Ethics procedure and complaint form on that link. So we will take some time to have any questions that you may have in the chat.
I have a few. So, when you were on the proprietary, that's a hard word, dues, somebody asked for you to define private conduct.
Go back to that slide real quick if you guys don't mind. Let's see. Is this the one, Christy?
The second bullet.
Private conduct does not get in the way of your FPA responsibilities. So what you do on the side. I think like one of the things I that comes to mind when I say private conduct is Facebook, right? Facebook and what you're putting out there to the world. We work with families. Internet is final. People can see it, screenshot it, and save it forever. So really being careful of what you're putting out there. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but remembering that we are working in a community and that people can see what we're doing, right? So just again, really being careful what you put out there. Um, if you do post things on your Facebook page, making sure we're not accepting friend requests from or Facebook or I don't know what the new kid what the
What
kids are using
you
these
did.
days. What the
That's
kids
great.
are using these days, TikTok or Snapchat or whatever's out there. Just keeping that private. Also kind of what you're doing in the community. If you're in a smaller community, just knowing that people can see you and just
One
yeah.
thing I thought
Mhm,
about, Ashley, was like when you go to conferences. So
mhm.
there are
Yeah,
times when you're at a conference, right, and you're spending the night, and so you're off the clock.
yeah.
Um, but you still want to behave in a way
Mhm.
that represents yourself and your agency and your role well. Another thing would be like if you're wearing swag, that would be another time to like be
Yeah.
really thoughtful about your behavior.
We don't want anyone to be like, "Hey, did you see what Ashley did at the conference?" Like cannonballs in the pool. I don't know. Just being funny, but in a serious way too. Just know that, as an FPA, we're out there in the community. What you put online is there forever, whether you delete it or not. Just kind of being acknowledging that and understanding that.
Well, another one was, and I thought this was a great
That's
one.
Mhm.
When is it okay to share that you are uncomfortable when, like, in a family's home or with a family? And when should it just be with your supervisor? And then somebody else had said, like, for example, like if their home smells like marijuana or tobacco.
You should not have to be in a situation where you're uncomfortable, period. So I think being honest with people, I'll share a little bit of my information. I grew up in a home with parents who smoked and it bothers me a little bit. So, stating to family, being completely honest with them, or if you meet with the family for a first time, if you seeing if they can meet you at the office or a meeting outside. And I think going to your supervisor immediately, we don't want to wait too long, right? We want to address it as soon as possible. If you're uncomfortable, share that information. If it's something you don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing with the family, maybe keeping that first visit kind of short. Hey, I was just here to get some of your information, meet you, let your supervisor know, and coming up with a solution. I don't feel that you should be, if safety is an issue, we want to address it right away and get yourself out. You should never put yourself in an unsafe situation. Or, a situation where you feel uncomfortable and definitely utilizing your supervisor right away. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, Albert, did you want to say something?
I was just going to agree, because I was going to say, tell them to come to the office or
Mhm.
another location. But another thing you can do, especially with marijuana, is if you have a relationship with them, but you're not comfortable being in the home, say, yo, listen, you trying to get me fired? If I can't keep my job and work with you if I'm getting secondhand contact when I walk in this house, that means it's in my
Mhm.
system. Turn around, let them be conscious of it. And
Mhm.
let them also know how it affects others.
Yeah. But when in doubt, I agree with what Ashley said.
Mhm.
Wrap up the meeting and go and talk to your supervisor, make a plan, and then that way aren't sort of struggling to decide what to do in that moment.
Just
So
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go
No,
ahead.
I think we should be conscious also knowing that we are going in families' homes and kind of keeping the idea of least restrictive environment. Um, just being conscious that is their home. So they have rights in their home. We have rights and really sharing that with your supervisor, never putting yourself in an unsafe situation, definitely.
So here's another great one. political talk. Um, so somebody shared that they have a family that has been making sort of political statements and whatnot, and the provider tried to sort of deflect. And then the family asked directly what they believed in, what political side that they believed in. And they said that deflecting isn't really working.
I think, especially right now, the best way to just avoid talking about politics, and I would be direct in it, saying I don't feel comfortable sharing this. I think that can be very sticky situation. It could be uncomfortable, and at the same time, FPAs, we work with families, we serve families, but that's not an excuse for you to feel uncomfortable either. So being honest, I don't feel comfortable talking about this, and if they continue to talk about this, talk to your supervisor. Maybe there's a better fit for that family. I would say avoid talking about politics altogether if possible, and being direct. Sometimes being direct. It's that's your personal business, and the family doesn't affect
Right.
their services. Knowing what
Yeah,
you're,
it's not their
yeah,
business.
yeah, exactly. It's
Um,
mhm,
and I have had success when I just say, oh, I'm here for this. I don't
yeah,
talk politics,
yeah,
and just keep it moving. I've always had
mhm,
people tend to respect that when it's pretty
yeah,
blatant.
yeah. It doesn't
It
affect
is
their
very hard to
services.
avoid.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, look at Julie said, it is against my code of ethics to just from work to discuss this. It's
Absolutely.
something that they don't want us discussing, but if you ever feel to need to vent about things, I'm here to listen. And you
Yeah,
don't have to do the second part if you don't want to. Albert,
yeah,
that was a great idea. Thank you,
yeah,
Julie.
yeah.
Me, I have a dodge. Every time somebody asks me about the president and all of that, I'm like, listen, it really doesn't matter who's in office, whatever laws come about, you know, whether we agree with them or disagree with them, they're laws. We still gotta follow them. So I just, leave things alone. I just follow whatever the laws is. And people just leave me alone on that.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you want, you can tell them if you would like to talk politics or if you'd like to talk to a politician, come to Family Together, Family Empowerment Day in Albany.
Amen. Emily?
I live in a super rural area, so that's actually happened,
Hmm.
I think 2, 3, 4 times with me. And I've actually, I've been in the middle of that and reiterated to a client, this isn't conducive to your treatment plan. This isn't helpful,
Hmm.
and it's something that I won't touch on. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, if you want treatment to be conducive, I have to have boundaries that are allowed to be had too, and that's one of them. So if you have boundaries, I get to have them too. That's not something I discuss, and we have to just change topic, or you can work with someone different. That's an option as well. And
Yeah,
that made it so that they've never discussed it again after that. So
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's okay to share your boundaries. That was Emily shared a very respectful way to share her boundaries, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I love Julie. You can lean right on the code of
Hmm.
ethics or your agency, or when I
Yeah.
was supervising, I would tell my, people like, use me,
Mhm.
to say, I just can't do that. And it is how it is. So it's not personal. So we have another question. Uh, Was there anything else you wanted to say about that, Ashley? Sorry.
Oh, that's great. Good questions.
Okay. So, when working with a client, is it ethical to take them out for lunch? Does it
Okay.
breach the code of ethics?
So I would refer back to your agency and depending. So we want to make sure it depends on spending, I guess, and every agency might have different ideas on what they want spending. If you're meeting a family in public, you're each paying your own way, I would say no. If you are offering to pay for a family, I think it can get a really sticky situation. It can cross some boundaries there. You again don't want the family to rely on that. If you take them out for coffee and you pay for the coffee every time, um, that can get sticky. So I would say, it's a sticky situation. I don't know that it violates any ethics per se, but it does cross some boundaries, and your agency might have policies on that as well. I think meeting in public is perfectly okay. But just, if you're buying them lunch, I think that definitely gets into a sticky situation. Um, so just I would caution you on that.
Yeah, and Tiffany said, like her program has service dollars.
Mhm.
It's so
Yeah,
great when you have a
yeah,
program that does have that.
yeah, absolutely.
So like Ashley said, checking with your
Mhm.
so Denise said if you hear that somebody is using the FPA title as an independent, I'm gonna assume just provider, and you know that they don't have the training or credential, is that a reportable complaint?
It could potentially be. Kind of gets into whether they're billing for it or not billing for it. If they're billing without an FPA credential, I would say yes. And you could file a complaint with the FPA Code of Ethics on that.
Or billing without it, that's Medicaid
Yeah,
fraud.
yeah, exactly. Thank you,
Um,
Christy.
yeah, but yes, I think that reaching out, if you know of somebody who's saying that they're a credentialed family peer advocate and you know that they are not, that's definitely something that we could look into.
Yeah.
Um, all right, I think that everybody is wrapping up. Any last minute questions?
I did see, I see Rhonda's question was, I'm currently a substance abuse counselor and parenting coach. How do I become a family peer
Yeah,
advocate?
and I just
If you,
told her to email
oh,
the,
okay. hmm Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I missed that
oh,
answer,
no
Chrissy.
worries.
Thank you. Uh,
Melissa did just ask, in the RTF example, what if the situation was reversed? I've had several families who want their children sent away because they're having difficult times with behaviors. It's tricky to manage as there are multiple steps to utilize and other interventions to try. Some families are so overwhelmed and stressed that there is nothing else they are focused on.
so I think asking some of those questions, what would success look like to you? Right? What is a successful situation? And at the end of the day, I think it's keeping it family driven and putting the family first, exploring those options, but asking those questions. What does success look like? What do you want out of the situation? And seeing if, what do you want out of the situation? If they want the behaviors to be curbed, well, can we, you can give them those resources as to how to help. But at the end of the day, I think it is up to the family, and what is best for them, if that makes sense, keeping it family driven.
Albert?
Yes, I wanted to go back about FPA certifications and all.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed quite a bit of times that the verification tool does not work. One moment you can look up, next moment you can't.
Hmm.
Oh. And I had to go
Okay.
on there a few times, like, okay, it's a hit or miss. It works one day, doesn't work another. So that's one of my issues. In which, if somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm an FPA, such on and such," well, we can easily use the verification tool. But if it's not working,
If it's not working, I would just say to email us at that credential email. Just say, I checked the tool.
right,
It's not working, and give us the name. Make sure you say that the tool isn't working, because otherwise we'll just tell you to use the tool.
will do. Thank you.
Um, Somebody else asked about the recent changes with the provisional credential. There aren't any other updates outside of that at this time. And there's a survey in the chat, if everybody could take a moment to do that before you leave. And Kaveen,
Hi, yes, just really
hi.
quickly, and thank you so much for the presentation. Going back to the scenario that you shared with the two FPAs talking about the family in the conference room or coffee room, what would be the difference between like a peer support, like peer support supervision, and talking about the family without naming the family and to seek support versus what they did? I just want to clarify.
So I think, and Christy, maybe you can touch on this, talking to your supervisor. Your supervisor is there for support, so that's why I often tell a family when I'm working with them that their information might get shared with my supervisor. Where in the break room, it's a coworker who might not have, it's sharing your information with somebody that I guess it shouldn't be shared with, compared to your supervisor where they can provide support, resources, that kind of thing. Christy, do you have anything to add to that?
I think if you are looking for like peer support, from, maybe a coworker, you can do that in a non-identifiable way.
Yeah.
So, when you think of HIPAA, like the thing that always stuck with me was like, I can't share anything that could allow somebody else to figure out who the
Yeah,
person is that I'm speaking
exactly.
about. So if you said, "Hey, have you ever had a family who blah 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 blah," right?
Mhm.
There's no way to sort of track that back.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you can get feedback and support without violating anything. And you just want to be aware of where you are. Maybe the conversation would be better had like over the phone or in a private office if it's maybe something that somebody else would recognize while you're talking about it because it's within your agency. So just being mindful of that.
I also
But
want
I
to add,
think absolutely it's appropriate to get feedback and support from our colleagues.
well, I also want to add too, when you share with your supervisor, your supervisor is also held to a standard, right? Where your supervisor can't really go home and share with their husband, wife, brother, sister. If you're sharing in a break room and your coworker, with a coworker, they can go home and tell whoever, right? That information can still get out there. Somebody from the hallway could hear, and that information can get it out there. So there's really no set standard. You can assume that your coworker won't share the information you're giving them, but it's not. Your supervisor is kind of held to a standard where if that makes sense.
It's more formal of a
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All
Great
right. We have
questions.
people popping off. Yeah, you guys were great. You asked some questions that I didn't think
Yeah.
of. And I want to thank Ashley. Um, it's a great training. I think that it's a great conversation. Something that we all sign to and agree to abide by. And I think it's really important. And so thank you for offering this training so we can have a richer conversation around it. And
Thank you for
everybody
all your
saying
input and questions, and we hope to see you all soon.